Working on a cursed cargo ship in Alaska, 7 sinister rules revealed by a haunted captain. Sarah felt the chill creep into her bones as she stood at the docks in Anchorage, the dense fog swirling around her like ghostly hands. The ship loomed before her, notorious among locals as the Black Widow. Whispers followed her every step as she approached, each crew member casting glances filled with caution and fear. The stories were horrific: crew members vanishing without a trace, lost to the deep. At the center of this cursed vessel was Captain Reed, a man whose eyes showed more than just years at sea. They spoke of tragedy. As she boarded, an unsettling silence enveloped her. The air was thick with salt and secrets, the creaking of old wood echoing like a warning. Captain Reed cornered her, his voice a gravelly whisper. "You'll follow the rules, 7 of them, and live to tell the tale." His eyes bore into hers, and she felt her heartbeat quicken. Rule 1, never stray from the deck after nightfall. Fear tightened her throat. "Why?" "Things like to wander when the sun sets," he replied, his gaze shifting as if seeing something just beyond her. It wasn't comforting, the way he said it. During her first night shift, shadows elongated on the deck, and the wind howled through the rigging, a mournful voice begging for companionship. Each distant splash of water made her jump, each rustle sounding like footsteps creeping closer. No crew member spoke to her, their eyes darting nervously at every corner. The tension hung thick, like fog refusing to lift. Rule 2 echoed in her mind, don't let them know your fear. But it was hard when the vessel creaked ominously, as if it were alive watching. As she worked, she noticed absent faces where once there were crew members. Hadn't there been a jovial cook? A grumpy engineer? The reality of her situation hit like a wave. Her son Charlie's innocent laughter was now a memory as she fought to keep the panic at bay. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As darkness enveloped her, Sarah felt as though the shadows themselves were whispering secrets, haunting tales of the sea, blood spilled in sacrifice. Rule 3 warned her, trust no one. A young crewmate approached, but her instincts screamed danger as he offered help. She shook her head, eyes darting, heart racing. She was alone. Each warning whispered in the dark coiled tighter around her, constricting like a predator's grip. When the lights flickered and went out, dread washed over her. The whispers grew louder, insistent, as if they wanted her to listen more closely. With each heartbeat, she could almost see the faces of those who disappeared, trapped by the ship's curse. Desperation clawed at her as she recalled Captain Reed's final rules, especially the last, never tempt the sea. A gust of wind howled, rattling the old ship. A sense of betrayal seeped into her veins as she uncovered hidden passages and dark intentions lurking aboard. An ally turned against her. As she stood frozen, staring into the darkness, realization hit: some spirits are never meant to be disturbed. What would she do to save Charlie from this impending doom? The ship was coming alive, and somewhere, deep beneath the waves, something was watching, waiting. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as the darkness wrapped around her like a shroud. The last remnants of light faded away, leaving her standing in the ship's belly, where secrets lay entombed in shadows. She felt her breath quicken, each gasping inhale sharp with fear. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the galley, a jarring sound that shattered the silence. Her instincts screamed at her to stay put, but adrenaline surged through her veins, compelling her to move. She clutched the flashlight tightly, its weak beam slicing through the blackness as she tiptoed toward the noise. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. No answer met her ears, just the creaking of the ship and the distant splashes of waves against the hull. She hesitated. Rule 4 flashed in her mind, always tread carefully where footsteps linger. As her light flickered and dimmed, Sarah felt a cold draft sweep down the corridor, wrapping around her and chilling her bones. A quick movement caught her eye. Was that a shadow? She spun around, but nothing was there, or was it? The whispers resumed, low and conspiratorial. They were real, a chorus of lost souls entwined in the fabric of this cursed ship, begging to be heard. Panic gripped her throat, and she pressed on, each footfall heavy with dread. Time slipped away, minutes felt like hours in the oppressive atmosphere. As she stepped into the galley, the sight shocked her. Pots and pans lay strewn across the floor, a single chair toppled over. But it was the smell that hit her hardest, a rancid odor of rot and decay. Anger bubbled inside her, mingling with fear. Had the cook been caught in whatever dark game was unfolding? The floor creaked beneath her, echoing in the emptiness, and she suddenly felt vulnerable. She shone the light around, revealing hastily scrawled messages on the walls, cryptic notes smeared with something dark, a warning, perhaps. They come at night. Trust no one. Return to the sea. Suddenly, the flashlight blinked out, plunging her into total darkness. Heart racing, she fumbled for her phone, its screen illuminating just enough for her to see. Shadows danced around her, the shapes shifting and warping as if beckoning. Panic surged, she had to find the others. But where were they? Images of her son flooded her mind. She promised to return to him. Not like this, she whispered to the darkness. Not like this. The whispers intensified, drowning out her thoughts. She could almost hear them now, the voices of crew members who had vanished, their warnings tangled together in a chorus of despair. The ship began to tremble as if it were alive and feeding on her fear. A familiar shape loomed in the shadows, the outline of a figure, a man dressed in tattered remnants of what could have been a uniform, eyes hollow and lifeless. Help me, it rasped, reaching toward her with a gnarled hand. She stumbled back, the cold grip of terror snatching her breath away. No. Get away. But it was too late. The figure lunged forward, and she felt the damp chill of death brush against her skin. Instinctively, she turned and ran. She couldn't let herself think, she only had to escape. Behind her, laughter echoed, a haunting melody that echoed through the corridors, chilling her further. The ship was alive with darkness, and the water whispered promises of what lay beneath. When she reached the deck, the storm had grew fiercer. The ocean roared, waves crashing against the hull like an angry beast. Lightning cracked, illuminating the vast emptiness around them. But something caught her eye, a shadow beneath the waves that seemed to pulse with life. She could almost make out a face beneath the surface, staring back at her. The horrifying realization hit. It wasn't just the ship that was cursed, it hunted as well. Desperate to find shelter, she remembered one last rule. Never provoke what lies beneath. But what if she had already done so? As she stumbled back, a deep rumble resonated from the heart of the Black Widow, a promise of doom that sent chills radiating through her spine. She glanced at the dark water once more, a second face joining the first, skeletal hands reaching for her. What were they? Were they spirits of the lost? Or something more sinister? As fear gripped her, she knew she had to discover the truth. Time was slipping away, and Charlie was waiting. But how could she save him when the darkness threatened to swallow her whole? The next chapter wasn't just survival, it was a revelation, a search for secrets buried deep, where nightmares lingered just below the surface. Sarah stumbled back, her heart racing as her gaze darted between the slashing rain and the ominous waves. The faces beneath the surface seemed to stretch, contorting in a silent scream, a warning too late delivered. Each pulse of the shadowy figure sent a shiver through her. The storm whipped around her, twisting her thoughts as tight as the ropes that bound the ship. She couldn't just stand there. I have to find Charlie, she whispered to herself through clenched teeth. The memories of his laughter echoed in her ears, but the ship's sinister whispers drowned them out. He needs me. With shaking hands, she fumbled for the lifeline. The nearby lifeboat gleamed ominously in the sporadic flashes of lightning. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could escape this nightmare. But the cold dread gnawed at her insides. If she left the ship, would the faces below the water come to claim her? What if the dark depths held more than just spirits? Did they harbor something worse? A crash from the cabin sent her adrenaline surging. She had to know what lurked within, but the idea froze her. What if it's worse than what's out here? The choice lingered, thick like the fog that enveloped her thoughts. Stop! A voice roared from the shadows, booming over the storm's fury. The wind swirled, carrying the sound and chilling her to her core. The thick mist shifted, and as she turned, the outline of the ship's captain appeared, his features shrouded by the darkness. The familiarity of his presence both relieved and terrified her. "Captain!" she called, though doubt dripped from her words. "What happened here?" He stepped closer, his sunken eyes revealing a depth of sorrow and horror. "You shouldn't be here, Sarah. You don't understand what goes on beneath the surface." His voice trembled, fear lacing the edges. "Tell me. I need to know." Her desperation pushed past her fear. She was grasping at whatever thread of clarity he could provide. "The ship," he began, his gaze distant, "it holds the remains of those who trusted it. Seafarers, like myself, we sacrificed everything." Sarah took a step backward, her mind racing. "But why? Why them? The cargo. It was never meant to leave. Bound by ancient rights, they drift eternally, and in trying to escape, we angered the sea." His hand gestured toward the raging waters. "Their spirits hunger for more." "More what?" The question slipped out, but the answer tasted bitter on her tongue. "More lives," he replied, darkness swallowing his words. The laughter she had heard echoed again, palpable and mocking. All the crew had vanished, but the captain lingered, trapped himself, a ghost in a ghostly ship. The deck jolted beneath her feet, another violent tremor rippling through the vessel as if it had awakened further. "You need to leave," he shouted, his voice almost breaking. "Before they take you too." "But Charlie." The thought paralyzed her. She couldn't leave him behind. Not like this. The captain's expression hardened, a fleeting moment of clarity breaking through his despair. "You must decide. Save yourself, or uncover the truth before it's too late. They'll come for you, Sarah, they'll come for us all." His words hung heavy in the air, and she turned, torn between the lifeboat and the promises of secrets hidden within the shadows of the ship. Yet, the storm surged with newfound fury. Rain lashed against her, and the cold pallet of dread tightened like a noose. The faint whispering rose once more, a siren call that seeped into her bones. Before she could blink, swirling shadows began to close in on all sides, dimming the frail flicker of hope that she clung to. In that second, she caught sight of the figures in the water again, relentless, pulling deeper into the dark tide. "Make your choice, Sarah." The captain's voice echoed as she fought against the rising tide of fear. What would she choose? The truth, lurking just beneath the surface, or the chance of escape, elusive yet dangerous? It was time to act. With a sudden resolve, Sarah dashed toward the cabin, drawn not by fear alone but by an insatiable curiosity. Whatever awaited her was waiting below, and the storm's wail became a roar of determination. But as the ship shuddered again, plunging her into an abyss of shadows, she realized the truth awaited her, whispering promises that could either save her or seal her fate. What lay in store beneath the surface that haunted the soul of the Black Widow? As Sarah stepped into the cabin, darkness swallowed her whole. The air inside was thick and clammy, clinging to her skin like a wet shroud. A surge of panic electrified her nerves, every creak of the ship sounding like a warning. She blinked against the gloom, desperate for clarity amidst the chaos. Shadows danced in corners, flickering with every flash of lightning outside. "Charlie," she whispered his name, her voice barely piercing the heavy silence. A sickening dread twisted in her stomach like a knife. What if he was still here, trapped, just like the captain? She felt her way forward, fingers brushing against surfaces slick with moisture. The smell of mildew mixed with something rotten, something far worse. She coughed, the air thickening in her lungs as she ventured deeper. Something in her gut screamed to turn back, but she had to know. Then, she saw a flicker of movement to the right. Her heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Charlie? Is that you?" she called, her voice echoing in the hollow space. Nothing responded. But the silence was soon broken by a low hum, creaking akin to the sound of bones shifting. Shadows writhed as if alive, forming grotesque shapes along the walls. The hairs on the back of her neck stood straight. Terror gripped her again, urging her to flee, but she couldn't lose hope. She couldn't abandon Charlie. "Please, where are you?" she croaked, her throat constricting with each word. The hum grew louder, weaving in and out of her senses. Sarah's pulse raced. A feeling of dread clouded her thoughts. Then, amidst the chaos, a high-pitched laughter erupted, echoing with malicious glee. It clawed at her sanity, teasing apart her resolve. Sarah turned sharply, squinting into the blackness, and saw a flicker of light shimmering at the far end of the cabin. With a deep breath, she steeled herself and moved towards it. The closer she got, the more distorted the shadows became, twisting into caricatures of the lost souls the captain had mentioned. Suddenly, the light flickered extinguished. Darkness enveloped her entirely. In the silence that followed, she felt its cold breaths against her neck. Fear shot through her, leaving her frozen. Then a whisper came, soft and sinister, "You shouldn't have come here." She spun around, searching for the source. The shadows seemed to pulse and retreat, closing in and pushing back with each breath she took. Heart hammering, she stepped back, only to collide with something solid and unyielding. "Charlie!" Panic surged as she turned again, realizing she had reached a wall of old, damp stone. She was trapped. "Sarah," the voice came again, softer this time, laced with a hint of sorrow. It was Charlie's voice. But it was muted by something darker. "Help us!" A surge of terror washed over her. "Help us? Who? What do you mean?" The shadows quivered, and suddenly, faces emerged within them, faces of the lost crew, faces twisted in pain. They reached toward her with skeletal hands, mouths locked in silent screams. The humidity thickened around her, and the air turned electric. The shadows beckoned her forward, the laughter growing louder, echoing within her mind. They wanted something. They needed her. "You will join us!" They all shrieked, their voices melding into one deafening roar. Sarah stumbled back, a wild fear igniting in her chest. She had to escape. But as she turned toward the cabin's entrance, it vanished, swallowed whole by an engulfing darkness. "Change your fate, Sarah." A voice boomed, and the captain's apparition loomed into view, stretching a ghostly hand toward her. "Leave now," he warned, desperation etched across his fading face. "It's the only way to save him." But save him from what? The storm raged on outside, and each pulse of rage from the sea drew her back toward the abyss, toward the grotesque faces promising release, freedom, but at what cost? The weight of the captain's warning hung in the air as Sarah felt a pull at her essence. She was caught between salvation or a descent into darkness. What awaited her decision would change everything. Would she yield to the shadows, or fight the tide? With everything at stake, she took a deep breath, ready to confront the truth waiting to unfold. Was the promise of rescue merely another deceit born of the cursed ship? Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as the spectral captain loomed closer. The shadows writhed, pulling her attention between him and the horrifying figures clawing at the edges of her vision. "What do you mean, change my fate?" she gasped, desperate for any semblance of understanding. The captain's eyes darkened. "This place, it feeds on fear." He gestured toward the swirling shadows, "and once it has you, it'll never let go." The memories of her friend Charlie twisted with the dread coursing through her. She couldn't abandon him. But what did the captain mean? What should I do? How do I save him? His gaze flickered to the shadows reaching for her. You must face the truth. Time is running out. The sharp clang of metal echoed through the cabin, rattling her resolve. A heavy thud reverberated nearby. She turned, and from the corner of her eye, she saw at a door, previously hidden, now ajar, a faint glow emanating from the sliver of light. It beckoned her. The whispers turned into a guttural growl, an angry chorus demanding her attention. Don't listen to them. The captain shouted, but she was already moving toward the door. Sarah. No. Charlie's voice echoed, pleading. It swirled like a gust of wind, pushing her closer to the promise of that light. She had to know if he was behind it. The cabin shook as she reached out. The moment her fingers brushed the cold wood, a blast of energy coursed through her, igniting something inside. The door swung wide open, a blinding light flooding in. But instead of a passage, an otherworldly vision opened before her. She found herself on the deck of the ship, the storm raging wild above. Waves crashed violently against the hull, threatening to tear apart the very fabric of the cursed vessel. Beside her stood Charlie, his eyes wide and frantic, his body soaked with rain and despair. Sarah. He called, reaching for her. Get away from the cabin. But the shadows from within were already spilling out, swirling like a dark fog, engulfing the ship and clawing at their ankles. The faces of the lost crew twisted in anguish, screeching for salvation or revenge, she couldn't tell which. Then Charlie was gone. She spun around, the roaring tempest blinding her, panic surging like a tidal wave. The ship creaked ominously beneath her feet. The captain's warning echoed in her mind, drowning out the noise as dread clawed at her throat. Sarah, join us. The voices rose, a cacophony that pierced through the chaos around her. Leave this world and fulfill your destiny. No. She gritted her teeth, willing herself not to succumb to despair. She had come too far. Determined to fight back, she planted her feet firmly, the courage igniting a spark within her. Charlie. She screamed into the storm, her voice barely rising above the tumult. I'm coming. But a twist of fate snagged her breath. The ship lurched violently, throwing her against the railing. The darkness surged toward her with a ferocity that made her skin crawl. She closed her eyes, hoping that this wasn't how it ended. The wind howled, carrying a familiar voice, echoing through the chaos. Sarah. Wake up. With a start, she opened her eyes. The reality shifted again, she was back in the cabin. The shadows loomed like a hungry beast, and the door had vanished, replaced by stone walls closing in. Now the game truly begins. A sinister voice chuckled among the shadows, each syllable resonating with a palpable sense of dread. Trapped once more, Sarah struggled to catch her breath. The whispers became a dreadful crescendo as her surroundings transformed, revealing grotesque distorted images from the ships past, the captain's betrayal, the crew's grim fate, all circling around her like vultures. What price would she pay for survival? What darkness awaited her as she faced the inevitable? Time is running out, the captain's ghost murmured. You must act before it claims you all. With a sudden impulse, Sarah clenched her fists. The shadows swirled, inching closer, promising chaos and despair. Her fear was rising, but she wouldn't submit, not while there was hope for Charlie. What lay in store if she dared to defy the depths of despair? She took a step forward, ready to confront the shadows, ready to uncover the sinister truth that bound them all, even if it meant facing the fears that lurked within her own soul. The very essence of darkness awaited her. Would she find the strength to carve light from it, or would she, too, become part of the ship's haunting legacy? The shadows rippled like liquid nightmares, closing in on her with a hunger that made her skin crawl. Sarah could feel their chilling breath as they whispered her name, a promise laced with malice. Panic clawed at her throat. She had to choose fight or flee. Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to confront the swirling darkness. I want to let you take me. She shouted, the sound reverberating off the stone walls, echoing back like twisted laughter. As if responding to her defiance, the shadows recoiled, then surged forward, more ferocious than ever. The air around her crackled. Shapes began to take form within the dark, grotesque faces frozen in eternal anguish. They silently screamed, their expressions twisted in torment, and Sarah felt the electricity of their despair seep into her bones. "What are you?" she demanded, anger mingling with fear, fueling her resolve. "What do you want from me?" "You seek him," the captain's voice hissed from the darkness, mocking, and echoing off the walls. "But he cannot be saved without a sacrifice." Her heart raced. "I won't sacrifice anything." She knew deep down this was about much more than just Charlie. Their fates were intertwined in ways she couldn't fully comprehend yet. Suddenly, the walls began to pulse with the rhythm of her heartbeat, illuminating dozens of small cracks where eerie blue light flickered. With every pulse, the shadows flickered and exploded with whispers. "Face your fears, Sarah." The shadows snarled, hungry, alive. She stepped closer to the glowing cracks, intrigued. Within that light lay scenes from the past, fragments of memories that belonged to the ship and its crew. The captain's betrayal, the crew's abandonment, and the desperate struggle against the storm all replayed inside her mind's eye. It seemed like the ship itself was an entity, feeding on sadness and despair. "Face your darkness." The voice boomed again, and panic surged in her chest. What did that even mean? Shadows coiled around her legs, threatening to pull her under, whispering of Charlie's fate, a taunting reminder that time was slipping away. "Charlie! I'm coming!" she cried, desperation lacing her voice. She needed to know he was alive, that he hadn't become a casualty of this cursed fate. As she reached out to the light, cold hands gripped her arms. Ghostly figures materialized, those she had seen before, skeletons of despair, faces twisted in agony, reaching for her in their silent suffering. She felt their sorrow wash over her, a tide of hopelessness that threatened to drown her. Trembling, she jerked back. "No. I won't be like you." The shadows howled in fury, and a gust of wind burst through the cabin, throwing her to the ground. She landed hard, the air knocked from her lungs. The specters closed in, and she could feel their desolation wrapping around her, whispering sweet lies of surrender, but then a sudden clarity struck her. "This is my fight," she shouted, rising to her feet. "I won't disappear into your nightmare." The shadows hesitated, wavering. The light from the cracks pulsed, brighter this time, stronger. She felt the truth pressing against her heart, pushing her to act. Gathering every ounce of strength, she focused on the light and shouted, "I won't let fear claim me. I choose to stand." The shadows recoiled as if stung. For a moment, the cabin shook violently, the walls threatening to collapse around her. The trembling intensified, and Sarah felt the power of her resilience, or was it desperation? Shattering the hold of darkness. But as the shadows pulled back, revealing the door hidden behind them, another chilling sound pierced the air. The echo of Charlie's voice, this time not a plea, there was something else. Madness? Longing? It called to her, a siren's wail shimmering on the edge of sanity. Sarah, the voice trailed off, thick with the weight of despair, wrapping around her heart. What lay behind that door, craving to be opened? Would she confront more than just shadows? Or was this only the beginning of a darker truth? The air thickened with dread as her heartbeat echoed in the silence. The choice she had to make loomed before her, the darkness whispered promises sweeter than hope. Would she venture in, or was it a trap waiting to ensnare her final resolve? The door loomed, warped and splintered, a gaping maw of uncertainty. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, but she was drawn to it, compelled by an invisible force. The whisper of Charlie's voice tugged at her soul like an anchor, anchoring her to the depths of despair. "Don't leave me." The echo wormed its way past her defenses, laced with longing. For an instant, her resolve wavered, but the shadows pulsed at her feet, seething with anticipation. "Go to him," they hissed, their voices a blend of many, writhing like tendrils of smoke. "He is waiting. He needs you know." She screamed, the sound fracturing the air around her. I want to listen to you. She felt the weight of countless eyes upon her lost souls staring from the darkness, their hollow gazes filled with a warning. They had been sacrificed to this cursed ship, and she could almost see their desperation etched into the very fabric of the vessel. Endless layers of pain swirled around her, threatening to drag her under. With newfound determination, Sarah stepped toward the door. She grimaced as panic skittered up her spine. What lay on the other side? The glow from the cracks shone brighter, pushing back the darkness. Could the truth set her free, or would it tie her even tighter to the ship's ghastly fate? The shadows hissed, swirling around her legs, oozing remnants of agony onto the floor. Images flashed before her mind: Charlie, desolate, trapped in an abyss of madness, reaching out for her with eyes that reflected heartbreak. She could feel every ounce of his despair claw at her heart, ripping her apart. Stop! Sarah shouted, stop trying to manipulate me. The shadows shrieked in response, and the echoes of tormented souls merged in chaotic harmony, churning into a cacophony that shook the walls. The cabin trembled as if it were alive, the ship protesting against the weight of their collective suffering. Face it. The voice of the captain erupted, booming and furious, face your truth. You think you can save him? You are no savior. A chill crept through the air as it thickened with dread. Whatever lay behind that door, there would be no turning back. She'd either save Charlie or let him slip into the grip of despair forever. It's now or never, she murmured to herself, inching closer to the door. The frame threatened to splinter as she reached for the handle, its surface cold and slick, pulsing as if the ship were alive. Gathering her courage, she twisted the knob. It creaked like a long-buried memory awakening, and the door swung open, revealing a realm that twisted the very fabric of reality. Inside was a world distorted by shadows and light, a hall of mirrors twisted into grotesque shapes where her darkest fears and regrets danced mockingly. She gasped, her heart pounding like a war drum, the air thick with a palpable tension. Charlie! She cried out again, more desperate than ever, but only her voice echoed back from the abyss. The reflections flickered, showing flashes of another time, another life. Charlie's face appeared, twisted and forlorn, his eyes wide with terror. Sarah, help me, he gasped before disappearing into static. No. Sarah lunged, but the air shimmered and warped, repelling her like an unseen force. Each step felt like quicksand, dragging her deeper into the nightmare. Choose. The shadows snarled, fangs glistening like polished obsidian, your fate or his. As Sarah stood paralyzed, the choice pressed heavy upon her. Was there a way to save them both, or was one doomed for the other's salvation? The darkness closed in, and the figures writhed with anticipation, their shadows mixed with cold malice. With a final surge of defiance, she reached out, prepared to confront whatever horror lay hidden within that mirrored maze. Was she ready to face not only her fears but the twisted truth of her own heart? The whispers clawed at her sanity as she stepped further in, the door slamming shut behind her, sealing her fate. What awaited inside the twisted labyrinth? Would the hauntings of the past reveal the salvation she sought, or drown her in despair? Sarah's heart raced. In the suffocating silence, the weight of the unknown pressing heavily against her chest. The moment the door thudded shut, darkness enveloped Sarah, swallowing her whole. Panic coursed through her veins, cold and electric. She was alone in this hall of reflections, and the distorted echoes of her own breath reminded her that her fight was far from over. As she took cautious steps deeper into the labyrinth, the mirrors pulsed with unsettling life. They twisted and contorted, reflecting not just her image but fragmented versions of her memories. Charlie laughing, his smile bright, and then morphing into a look of horror as shadows swallowed him whole. Where are you? She cried, her voice trembling. I can help you. The silence was immediate, oppressive. Then, a low chuckle filtered through the darkness. It slithered into her ears like a snake, chilling her heart. You think so highly of yourself, Sarah. You're already trapped. He is lost, and you are too late. With every flickering shadow, she felt the weight of despair settling on her shoulders. She pressed her palms to the nearest mirror. A jolt shot through her body, a surge of energy that felt like it could either set her free or ensnare her further. Tendrils of darkness reached from the edges of the reflection, brushing against her fingers. She flinched, withdrawing as the swirling figures within the glass cackled with delight. "You want to save him?" they taunted. "You have to sacrifice something or someone." An icy knot formed in her stomach. "What do you want from me?" She pushed against the mirrored barrier, desperate. "I'll do anything. Would you give up your past? Would you give up your identity for him?" The shadows writhed, and within the storm of chaos, faces materialized, faces of those who had come before her, souls entwined with the ship, forever caught in the throes of a dark fate. Sarah's pulse raced. Could she truly forsake who she was? With each second, the air thickened, and the reflections began to twist even further. Her own face shifted into a monstrous version of itself, eyes hollow, mouth twisted into a scream. It was her worst nightmare, and it threatened to consume her. A flicker, a glimpse of Charlie. He was struggling, drifting through a patch of darkness. "Sarah, I'm here," he called, his voice a siren's song pulling her toward the cravings of her heart. "Charlie!" she shouted, lunging toward his image. The instant her fingertips brushed the surface, a pulse echoed throughout the realm. Everything stilled, the shadows holding their breath. "Let go of the past, Sarah. Choose to save him." But in that moment, the mirrors fractured, splintering deeper into chaos, scattering the reflections of all her decisions. Each shard sprouted whispers, vowing to drown her in despair if she failed to make a choice. A sharp breath caught in her throat. Could freeing Charlie mean losing herself? The weight of the decision pressed like a noose, ready to pull tight. She was teetering on the edge of surrender, heart pounding, spinning in a dance of shadows. Then the whispers sharpened into something sinister. "Choose," they cried. "His life or your very soul." As fear tightened around her like a vice, Sarah's breath hitched. Was this truly the moment? In a world filled with desperation, could a single choice rip apart the fabric of who she was? The dark reflections reformed, swirling faster, absorbing the light around her. Time twisted and stretched like taffy, each echo beating against her heart as she fought to understand what was at stake. With the faintest shimmer of resolve, Sarah stepped back and screamed, "I want to lose myself. There must be another way." What would come next? The air shimmered with magic and malice, and Sarah could faintly taste the acid of despair rising in her throat. The response was chilling, a laugh echoing through the hall, a promise that her defiance would pay the price. What lay ahead in these shadows? What forgotten pieces of herself would she uncover? And would they lead her back to Charlie or seal them both in darkness forever? The shadows quivered, a vibrant chaos under Sarah's trembling gaze. The laughter, high-pitched and wicked, reverberated through the mirrored hall, twisting echoes that seemed to claw at her sanity. "You think you can resist? Every choice comes with a price, a terrible, terrible price," the voices taunted, each mirroring a hint of her own despair. Desperate, Sarah spun around, eyes darting from reflection to reflection, searching for any sign of Charlie, any hint that she could bring him back. The mirrors, as if reading her thoughts, showed twisted versions of their past together, moments that felt sacred now drenched in horror. "Don't look away. You want to like what you find." The shadows curled, slithering towards her like monstrous serpents. She clenched her fists, pushing back the panic. "Charlie! I'm coming. Hold on." The words poured from her, raw and wild. But the echoes answered her only with cackles, mocking her strength. Sarah stumbled backward, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The reflections distorted again. This time, it was not just Charlie's horrified face but also the faces of others she knew, her parents, friends, all lost to the abyss. Each visage screamed silently, their mouths wide, their eyes wide with terror, as if warning her about the peril of her choice. "Choose," hissed the voices, swirling like a tempest. You already owe a debt. It's time to collect. The air thickened, pressing in on her. Sarah felt the heat rise, a mix of anger and dread clawing its way to her throat. I won't let you take them. I won't. Suddenly, a tremor shook the floor. The mirrors convulsed, casting flashes of blinding light that danced with the dark. Sarah's heart raced, the rhythm pounding in her ears. Was this it? Would the darkness finally consume her? Across the shimmer, she spotted him again. Charlie, right there. Sarah, please. His voice broke her heart, echoing her resolve. Did he want her to choose? What if embracing her identity meant losing him forever? Listen closely, hissed a deeper voice, rich with malice. What is to lose one you love for many? With a surge of defiance, she yelled, I will fight. I know who I am. I want to be a puppet in your game. An unnatural wind whipped through the hall, rattling the mirrors and causing a symphony of screams to swell. Her reflection rippled like water, yet within the chaos, she caught another glimpse herself, standing strong, not broken but whole. Just as clarity struck, the ground beneath her shifted. The fractures of the mirror began to radiate outward. Tendrils of shadows wrapped around her legs, tightening like a noose, pulling her back even as she struggled against them. What do you want? She screamed. Won't you let him go? Suddenly, a new face filled the last shard, a stranger, with hollow eyes and a wicked grin. The cost is not sacrifice but tribute. Pay in memories, or join the rest of us. The reflection warped, revealing horrors, a parade of tortured souls trapped within. They were fragments of lost lives, remnant whispers of those swallowed by despair. At that moment, Sarah understood the weight of her choice. The air grew colder, fear seeping into her bones. No, she breathed, trying to retreat, but the shadows tugged violently, rooting her to the spot. I won tea. In a flash of determination, she ripped a shard from the mirror. It felt like lightning coursing through her palms, searing and exhilarating, a raw connection to all she had been. Would this be enough to shatter the hold of darkness? Choose now. The shadows shrieked in unison, their cacophony savage and wild. Sarah stood on the precipice of fate, gripping the shard, understanding each reflection now. It was not just Charlie in peril, it was her life, her heart, and every piece of herself she feared to lose. As the shadows lunged, she swung the shard at the nearest mirror. I choose hope. The glass shattered, a storm of light and darkness exploding around her. What would be left when the chaos cleared? Would she find Charlie, or would this reckless act only deepen their bond to the abyss? As the piercing light engulfed her, Sarah braced herself for what awaited in the chaos beyond. Sarah was engulfed by a blinding light as the shards of the mirror shattered around her, exploding in a cascade of scintillating reflections. Time blurred, the tumult of sound warping into a chant, a symphony of lost souls merging with her resolve. She felt weightless, suspended between the worlds, the darkness clawing to pull her back and the light beckoning her forward. The storm howled outside, pouring rain onto the black widow that shuddered beneath its fury. Sarah grasped the shard tightly, the piece of the mirror pulsing with energy, the echo of her choice reverberating in her mind. Hope. She cried out, the word a declaration, a lifeline threading through the chaos. The shadows screamed, their twisted forms writhing as they grasped for her, reaching out with evanescent fingers that burned like ice against her skin. Let him go. Sarah shouted into the void, drawing on every ounce of her strength. The light grew brighter, illuminating the faces lurking in the dark. She could see them clearer now, faces twisted in pain yet shimmering with something resembling relief. They were lost souls, struggling against their own despair. You don't have to stay here. Amongst them, she saw Charlie, his figure drifting dangerously close to the edge of darkness, haunted but unyielding. Mom! He shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos, and the sight of him ignited a fire within her chest. She pulled against the darkness, every inch a battle. I'm coming. Hold on. The shadows recoiled, screaming as she burst through their grasp, propelled forward by the love that fueled her heart. The shard ignited in her hand, spreading light in a realm full of shadows, sending them spiraling back. In a split second, she stood before Charlie, their eyes locking in desperate connection. "Mom, you found me." He beamed, relief flooding his features. But the darkness roared, drawing closer, hungry for its claim. "Stay behind me," she commanded, putting herself between her son and the oncoming tide of despair. "I want to let them take you." With the shard raised high, she concentrated on the essence of her love. "You want to control us." The shadows slashed at her, but she thrust the shard forward, light exploding outward in a brilliant shockwave. It carved through the darkness, illuminating everything and everyone within the abyss. The anguished faces began to transform, their horrors giving way to clarity. "Join us." The figures howled, torn between the allure of darkness and the hope radiating from Sarah. "You don't have to listen." She half sobbed, "You fought for your lives. You can break free." Echoes of power surged as the light enveloped them, filling the void with warmth and acceptance. Faces softened, their tumultuous agony replaced by something more beautiful, a sense of choice rekindled. One by one, they began to fade away, drawn toward the light. "Mom, we can go. We can get out." Charlie glowed with hope, his smile illuminating past the storm. "Let us escape together." But the shadows side-eyed her, oscillating in disbelief. "You think this is over?" they taunted. "This is just the beginning. I want to let you win." Sarah shouted back defiantly, squeezing Charlie's hand tightly. With a wave of newfound strength, she plunged deeper into the light. "Together," she whispered, and with that unity, they darted forward, surrendering to the surge. The vessel trembled as if awakening after a long, dark slumber, the storm echoing in sync with their defiance. Then, in a breathtaking instant, the darkness shattered, revealing the night sky above like a canvas painted with stars, brighter than any memory could encapsulate. The ship swiveled, groaning softly, and Sarah and Charlie found themselves standing firmly on the deck of the Black Widow, the storm abating as if respecting their victory. They were free. The haunting specters dispersed, finally at peace, allowed to swim toward the eternity they longed for. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, tears streaming down her cheeks, blending with the salty kiss of the ocean breeze. "We did it," she breathed, catching her son's gaze. "Yeah, we did." Charlie's eyes sparkled with relief and wonder, hope blooming vigorously within him. The weight of the past faded like mist, leaving them standing together, no longer bound by curses or shadows. Captain Reed's spirit hovered nearby, his gaze softening as he acknowledged their triumph. "You broke the chains," he whispered, a gentle nod to the power of hope. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of golden light, Sarah pulled Charlie close, weaving the memories of the night tightly into her heart. Lost yet found, shadows transformed into moments of resilience. "Let South leave this place behind," she whispered, the bond between them stronger than the fiercest storm. Together, they stepped into the future, unafraid and emboldened, reborn amidst the wreckage of the past. The Black Widow sailed onward, its haunting legacy now a tapestry of hope, and as they moved forward into a new day, Sarah knew deeply she had faced the shadows and conquered them, for love was the beacon guiding them through the darkness. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.